adaptability, one of the most important skills you learn in martial arts, adapting to your environment and to your situation. Who can adapt to the changes right now will make it to the other side to reap the benefits of it.
Welcome, friends, to the Budo Brothers podcast. My name is David, and joining me, as always, are Eric and Kyle, founders of Budo Brothers. You guys ready to go?
Yes, definitely.
Let's start it.
All right. Let's do this. Today, we are going to talk about the future. Ooh. I want you to get your crystal ball out, right? And we're going to do some speculating on the future, because there's lots of things going on in everyone's life at any given moment. And one of the most difficult things to do is wrap your head around what exactly is going to come to pass. So I'm going to throw out a question to you to start. Was there ever a time where you sat there thinking about what could happen to you in terms of business, entrepreneurship, or martial arts? And is what happened what you envisioned and what you thought would occur?
Well, this is one of my favorite pastimes. I know we always talk about being present and being in the present moment, but sometimes it's just fun to daydream and go into this space of creativity and imagination. Thinking about the future is imagination. You're imagining events coming to fruition. And I have to admit, I'm not accurate a lot of the time when I'm thinking about future stuff, because you create so many scenarios and so many different things, and you play out so many scenes in your mind that what you planned in the future doesn't actually happen. But it's so fun to think about, especially right now. Not as much fun, but very interesting to speculate on what it's going to be like, especially within martial arts training right now, because essentially it's the dark ages of martial arts.
Right, yeah.
Everything was shut down and is just coming back on, and there's different rules in different places on what is going to happen. Yeah. What do you guys think is going to be the future of
training? Yeah,
training in martial arts.
We could literally speculate on the future of what martial arts looks like. Like, do we now live in a world where everybody has to train with a mask? Like, man, how's jiu-jitsu and all the really close combat sports? Like, if there's people that are really concerned about this, like, how are they going to handle it?
Yeah, and go ahead, David.
Do we have to go with something like hand sanitizer jiu-jitsu?
Right.
Like, is that what's on the horizon for us all?
What happened to building an immune system and getting dirty and getting sweaty, right? Like, man, that's actually, it actually is proven that when you expose yourself, you build your immunity. By stressing the body, you grow and get stronger. That's what working out is.
And not to mention, martial arts is a game of time. The longer you spend in it, the more skilled you become. Being at an older age right now is not healthy to be around these big groups. So all these grandmasters and Tuhans, they shouldn't be going into these giant training sessions and doing these seminars all over the place,
300
because they're putting themselves at massive risk. So what happens to seminars? What happens to training like that?
Man. I don't know.
How do they spread their knowledge? Because it's not like they could be like, oh, I'm just going to jump on a Zoom meeting. Like,
or is it? Is the future of training on Zoom? I don't know. Like, I have seen so many different school owners have successful Zoom training classes, but as we all know, there's nothing that replaces person-to-person training. Hand-to-hand, feeling the resistance of another human body. There is no video or 3D experience that can replace that yet. Who knows what the future holds, considering that we're speculating on the future. But what does that future look like?
And since we're speculating, thinking about all the combat sport athletes, there are people that make a living off of fighting. Like UFC fighters, professional Muay Thai fighters. They're not able to train the same way. They're not able to get the types of sponsorships, deals. Like, how are the gym owners keeping these professional athletes trained up? And like, they have to be hurting so badly too. And I think if you're on the cusp of man, should I risk my life and become a professional fighter? Or should I just keep doing my work and job because it's safer? Right now, you're not going to take that leap of faith and jump into combat sports. It's a risky time because there's not even crowds watching sports in a lot of events right now.
But what's cool is that they're adapting, right? Like there is like the UFC is still going, right? Like and they've adapted. It's totally different when there's not crowds freaking out and throwing things and fights going into the into the crowd. Like this is a different world, right? They've like watching Joe Rogan social distance with all the other announcers. It's totally different. Mm-hmm. It's not the same.
How do you guys think it's going to affect kids? Because we understand that this is a snapshot of a moment in time. But imagine being in your most impressionable years right now and your parents get scared or are in fear of you touching and being close to other people. How does that have a long-term effect on these this generation? Like, I have no idea like what to think of that.
I mean, so speaking as somebody that has, I've got 3 boys and we've had to finish a school year off remote, obviously. And, I had homeschooled my boys for a long time before. So for us, it wasn't a huge adjustment. We're used to being in the house and kind of doing that work on our own as it is. Thinking in terms of that, and in general, just like martial arts and let's break it into age brackets, right? You've got martial artists, you've got some that are they start, when they're into an older age. And then you have some that are they're into competitions. They're in the prime of their physical body. And then you've got the kids, right? Now, I think you're correct in that for older students, there's a significant amount of risk. And so I think the smart school owners and the smart people that are running training are going to realize that you now have different clientele. Whereas before you could have a dojo, you've got your doors open and you've got a mix of people in the class. Now you may see that limited now. Those classes are going to be smaller, but you'll still have older people that will want to do it. And so will you have to split and say, okay, I'm going to do some training online. I've got some that we have to be in here and we're going to take our precautions and train appropriately, on these mats. So I really do think you might see actually a spike in growth of traditional martial arts where, the focus is on kata and the focus is on movement and the training that they can do in their home. Then you'll have that set where you will be able to, take the precautions that you need to, but you've got a healthier group of people just in terms of their age and their immunity that will be able to train physically and in there and put all of their effort into that moment. The kids, it's always the tricky part because it's hard for a kid to be motivated without mom or dad a lot of times getting them onto the Zoom meetings and stuff like that for kids that can go either way. I think some younger kids would be like all into it and want to do this stuff in their living room. But at the same time, for a kid, you do really need to bring them along in person. And I think again, with some of the precautions and stuff like that, you're able to do so. I really think it's that older subset of martial artists that are going to require the most attention moving forward when things get back to whatever quote unquote normal, whatever the new normal is.
And I have a feeling we're going to see more cases of this where there is an outbreak of something or a risk of something and we go into social distancing protocols.
Another lockdown.
Now, I'm going to speak on behalf of martial arts school owners from a business side of things. This is difficult.
It's tough, man.
Like right now, it's already a handicap with what landlords are doing to businesses.
It was hard enough to start a dojo before COVID.
Now, imagine you're not allowed to operate all months of the year because of sporadic shutdowns for social distancing. that change, like a few months of revenue, as we all know, is make or break for martial arts.
Or honestly, I mean, think about having to open at half capacity.
Right. Oh,
you know, and I think in terms of the space that I had, right? So my dojo was just a hair over 2,000 square feet. And, you know, in there I could have a class and I could have 25 adults in that class, and we had enough space to do things that we did, partner off for workouts and things like that. Well, if immediately that class size gets cut in half, then as an owner and as the guy running all the classes, I'm putting in double time because I have to create double the classes in order to take care of everybody. So there's scheduling issues. And then there's, you know, and if I don't, and people drop out and they don't want to do it, or they want to do it at a different cost point remote, in which case you're not getting, just like you specified, you're not getting all that training because you're not sparring when you're in your living room and the only person there, like the only thing there is your dog, right? Like you can't spar your dog. Yeah. Can't spar against your refrigerator. Like we can't do these things. You know, so am I as an owner putting in twice the work in order to fill this bigger space? Does it make more sense for me to downsize and run the classes that way? You know, downsize my space and run them that way, just to make sure that the revenue coming in is able to support everything. And, you know, there's so many questions and elements to this. It really is difficult to see where it's going to shake out. But I do think that older crowd of students, that's the one. I mean, I don't know about your experience, but for me, I always had like quite a few older people joining classes because they wanted to do it. They wanted to have some fun in it. It was a very social thing. And now that social thing is disappearing as well. So there's so many concerns.
Big time. So are we going to see, since we're speculating on the future, are we going to see tuition inflation? Like if I'm a business owner and I was just paying my bills at 100% capacity, and now I can only open if I'm at 50% capacity, do my rates double? Because you can't run a business at 50% capacity when you were breaking even at, 90. And the 10% was
Absolutely
your take home.
Right.
So what are we going to see? Are we going to see inflation where now all of a sudden you want to train at my school? I'm sorry. Now it's, $200 a month, $300 a month. Are we going to see inflation to training dues? I don't know.
I think,
or a different business model altogether. Right. Do you have instructors going to somebody's home and giving them a private lesson at an increased cost?
I think nature has so much to teach us. There are so many lessons mixed into the natural environment around us that I believe we can learn from. If you look at like climate change or change from the ice ages to now, when the environment changes, some species go extinct. Mm-hmm. And I really think if we're speculating, a new mutant type of business is forming.
Right.
Before, you used to be able to get through with hard work, getting a studio, putting blood, sweat, and tears into it, and throwing it out to the public, and it being supported by the community. The environment's changed. We got a snapshot of what technology's doing. Technology's changing everything. Amazon, Uber, like a whole bunch of new tools are coming in and completely shifting the environment. And it's mutating businesses. The weak are going to get weeded out in this new change of environment. But what it's doing, though, is it's showing who can adapt. Adaptability, one of the most important skills you learn in martial arts. Adapting to your environment and to your situation. Who can adapt to the changes right now will make it to the other side to reap the benefits of it. And I think everybody just got a look that you need an online component of your business because it allows you to scale without increasing your costs. When you're able to train using your computer and your costs are your internet and your students are plugging in, you're not having to pay those thousands of dollars in lease and in mortgage. But now the question is who can adapt to that the quickest? Who can make that valuable to people?
Who evolves? You're saying who evolves?
Yes.
Right. And so that evolution is really important. And actually think of it in terms of training. Think of it in terms of jiu-jitsu even, right? And so, you always talk about flow and like flow drills where you're not pushing against something that is resisting against you. You're feeling that resistance and you're moving with it. And in terms of that, this is really what's happening to businesses right now. There is a push on the business, and the push is like, hey, look, all these things are changing and you're going to need to adapt. And you can stay set in your old ways and say, you know what, this is what I'm doing. All I have is a Facebook page. Maybe I have an email address. I bring people into my studio, I train them, and I send them out the door. Now that person is pushing against what is a new reality. And it's the people that are able to manage all of those different things like you're talking about, the online presence, as well as the physical presence, as well as just being flexible enough to have that open mind and say, okay, I need to do things differently right now. And how can I do this that's going to work for my students, work for the community, work for me, so I'm not putting in twice the hours and making half the income out of it. And so are you able to flow with all these changes and adjust accordingly? It's a huge question, man. I mean, that's because you're talking in terms of people having technical know-how, and all of these things, and just having the resources to be able to do it and knowing what's out there. Those are the really important things for them.
This pressure is going to create diamonds.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. And the whole system's changing because I went to Tim Hortons, which is a Canadian staple. It's Dunkin' Donuts of Canada. And
right.
I had a crisp 20 in my pocket. I go through the drive-through and I wanted to pay for my coffee with my crisp 20. And I go to hand it to the lady and she literally thought I was going to like grab like her and pull her through the tin because she was scared of touching the money because the money is contaminated.
Yeah. Like, are we all going to be germaphobes now?
So cash is no longer accepted anymore.
Buy Bitcoin.
Like, how crazy is that? Like, our countries are built on cash, but you can, like, people don't even want, like, my $20 piece of paper at that point was worth nothing. Like, it could have been $1,000. She wouldn't have took it because she would have got COVID through that exchange. Wow. But it's just shifting things at a rapid rate. Now, that's a small example, but think about that. Mm-hmm. People are becoming conscious that like this exchange of paper or coins is not even necessary.
I'm scared that we're going to lose the handshake.
Yes.
Do you know how much, like, what a loss that would be that we no longer shake each other's hands? That has been a tradition. Like that is, it's how you instantly connect with someone when you meet them. Like, hi, I'm Eric. Boom. And you shake their hand and that is an exchange, right? From human to human. And now it's like, what do we have to do this elbow shit? Like, what is that?
Yeah. I was playing a game of golf and like, I went to shake somebody's hand at the end and they're like, no, let's elbow bump.
Elbow bump? How about, and you know what? How good a real handshake, when somebody who also doesn't care is like, man, I miss handshakes. Like, I miss handshakes too. And you give a handshake, you're like,
and you're like in this like secret club of handshakes. Yeah, like we are shaking hands right now. We are shaking hands.
Good. This is good.
Your hand is touching mine.
And then you immediately take out hand sanitizer and just kind of douse yourselves, right? Like, yeah, I gave somebody an air fist bump today, and it was just sad. I'm like, this is like, it's a fist bump, but like a foot away. I'm like, well, it's as good as we can get right now. Like, that's fine. There is a human connection aspect that is missing, and that's going to be missing from it. And that's the same thing. Like, then if people are afraid to do a handshake, then how do we get on dojo mats together?
That's the question.
Yes. But
Right? Like, how do we, if somebody's terrified of that or not having a mask on, like, don't even get me started on the whole, like, cash, like how dirty cash is, because it's gross. And as dirty as that is, what's even dirtier is your phone.
Right.
If you don't disinfect your phone, like that's like usually the most disgusting item anybody has on their person.
But
and those were just sitting there and scrolling Instagram and then like, going out onto the mats anyway. But how do you look forward at this point when you take something as simple as that, a handshake that can happen? Then how do you look forward and say, all right, now how do we train?
I feel like it's going to separate. It's going to there's going to be people who are like, yeah, this is stupid. Let's train. Mm-hmm. And then there's going to be like, oh my God, people, I can't. And it's just going to, unfortunately, it's going to separate a lot of people.
And you get so much information now that contradicts. You don't even know which way to go. Right now, we are looking for a few different products in Pakistan. And talking to these Pakistani manufacturers, they don't even have any type of social distancing protocol at all. We talked to them, they were going to doing a festival and like hanging out.
Really?
It doesn't exist to them right now. And then we are talking to some people in the Philippines, and they're on straight up lockdown.
You'll get shot if you walk outside.
Lockdown. And so it's crazy because how it's handled is so different. Mm-hmm. I mean, even probably how it's handled here is way different than where you are, David.
Yeah, we are fully opened up. Yeah, we're fully opened up. Restaurants, inside eating. So I live in New Hampshire, U.S. The southern part of our state is 50% capacity for indoor dining, but everywhere else, it's just we're full on. And off we go. And a lot of places, I mean, look, you touched on this before, and for better or worse, a lot of places have signs in the door for like more popular chain stores and things like that say you can't come in without a mask. You go in there, nobody has a mask on. So people are just kind of going about it their own way, and yet you'll still have people that are outside walking on, a sidewalk with nobody within 30 yards of them. And they've got their mask on as they're walking in 90-degree heat. Like, you just don't know from one person to the next how they're approaching this. So that's what makes it so difficult to look forward, is how do you even market any of this? Like, how do you say, we're training and we're open back up, come on in because this. So how do you leverage that?
So I think this was the solution I came up for in my mind. And this is the first time I'm saying it out loud because it's just a bunch of random collective thoughts. But I think that the future of martial arts will rely heavily on community and teamwork. Martial arts prior to this point has always been divided style system and whatever you have, right? The friction point right now is going to be these spaces. Holding and conducting your own dojo or space. So if martial artists can team up and share a space with multiple disciplines in it, it will cut their overhead. It will also bring more people into a spot who maybe want to sample more types of martial arts.
Who actually miss physical training.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I just foresee spaces getting used more effectively now. Optimizing spaces. Even shopping. This is a crazy idea. Like, we're in the e-commerce world. You have these massive places full of all this inventory. Why not have a place that has a very small amount of inventory where you could try it out and then you shop online and it shows up at your door? Like, just getting more optimized, even having the fulfillment center right in the mall where it's like, okay, cool. And then you order it online and it shows up in your space.
There's going to be so many different changes, man.
Yeah.
I think this is going to accelerate, and I don't know about you and your experience in training. I mean, obviously you've trained multiple styles. and when I had my dojo going, it was like, okay, we're going to have, we have a traditional based style of American Kenpo. But obviously we're doing Muay Thai. We're mixing in, locks, pain compliance, things that are more, in terms of self-defense training and what you would think of as that. And still every class we're doing some kind of a workout, and sometimes it's just that class and I got a bunch of kids in front of me. I'm like, like, guys, we're getting out the nunchucks, man. This is going to be a nunchuck night. We're just going to go have some fun. Like, and so I do think that like everything, if you have a school that is focused on one specific thing, that you're almost having your hand forced now to broaden that. And this may very well be the trigger that turns most of these pockets of martial arts all into mixed martial arts of some kind. Because there are disciplines that you can do on your own. There are things that you can do on your own. And, I could do a Zoom class with a bunch of kids where they've got foam nunchucks in their house and I'm teaching them how to do some stuff and we're all good. And it's a good class and they had fun, and I can still have that. I can do a Zoom class that is a workout, or we can do workouts inside where we're maintaining our appropriate distance and things like that. So I think having those multiple things that you're able to do and really just kind of diversifying your dojo is going to be the key to staying afloat through all of this. It really is an evolution that's upon us, and the people that are going to be thinking ahead on this and really keeping their mind open and getting into things like digital seminars and stuff like that and picking up those other training techniques and everything, those are the ones that are really going to flourish through everything. And they're going to make it past this stage where it's the huge adjustment, and you've got to figure out how to keep everything afloat.
Yeah. And there's so many signs in the businesses that are working right now. Airbnb, sharing spaces, Uber, sharing rides, like Skip the Dishes are people sharing their commute time. Why wouldn't martial arts start sharing its time and its space so that multiple martial artists can gather in order for the greater good of, training?
Right? Or even more than that, having, yoga or anything like that. I was approached all the time by people that wanted to, we didn't have the schedule for it, but that wanted to share the dojo space for their yoga studio, and they're like, we can do it when you're not here. We can, you've got the mats for it and everything else, and we'll, pay a portion of the rent and so on and so forth. I mean, these little things that bring other people together, other businesses together, and bring the community together as a whole, this can be a good thing. You can get people exposed to you that had no idea you existed.
Big time. And that's the beauty of these changes. It's literally, COVID is the forest fire that burns down all the old structures and makes room for the new seeds to grow. And the new seeds that are flourishing are the things that are working, and the things that are no longer working are the things that are getting burned down. And that's nature.
So let me ask you something, because you've been through evolutions in your own training and in your business, certainly, where you've had your hand probably forced one way or another, whether it was attaining product that you couldn't get a hold of, or something along those lines, some kind of a change that you had to adapt to. For instance, what advice would you give somebody that's sitting there and they're like, all right, things are starting to wake up. I've got to get back in here and start this back up. Where do I go next? So what wisdom can you offer that person who's just looking at this and maybe just overwhelmed with what's going on, and they need to find their way? How do you help them find their way?
Honestly, responding to what is, right? Objectively looking at your situation and trying to remove the emotion and trying to understand what is actually happening. Do I need to pivot? Do I need to retool? Do I need to go on the offensive? Do I need to retreat? Where are you? And don't be afraid to move. Don't be afraid to shake things up, adapt, learn, grow, seek out mentors, collaborate, work with each other, reach out to the community. If we silo, It's easy to self-destruct if you get stuck in your ways and you don't have feedback, you don't have a support network. Getting out, growing, learning, and adapting, because that's all you can do is change with change. That's the change of state.
And to add to that, in order to evolve, you need to kill your old self. You need to kill all of the things that you were up until that point in time. Because to evolve, you need to become something new. The caterpillar needs to change into the butterfly.
Right.
Your mindset, how you think of things, how you act on a regular day, what's important to you, everything about who you are needs to change and evolve. And it's uncomfortable.
Exactly. And I bet you if you ask the caterpillar, you want to stay a caterpillar? You're damn right he does. Little does he know that when he goes into the cocoon, he emerges a butterfly. A lot of us are in our cocoons right now. And it's uncomfortable because you're not moving. You're not used to living your life the way you want it to be. But the challenge on the other side is you blossoming and growing those wings and flying in this new world.
Like a phoenix rising from the ashes, man. Absolutely. So can we pose some kind of a Budo Brothers challenge related to speculating on the future? Where do we go with this?
Okay, Budo Brothers challenge.
Uh-oh.
We'll call it the metamorphosis challenge because we're just talking about butterflies.
Love it.
Love it.
So imagine you're in a cocoon right now. The challenge is to detach from everything currently in your life and to take a 4,000-foot view of it, just like Eric was talking about it. Detach from your emotions, detach from who you think you are, detach from your stories, and then look at the tea leaves, as we like to call it, and make an analysis of what types of actions you need to take in order to move into and progress into the future. So
and emerge that butterfly that
Yes.
you want to be. What do you want to be when you get out of this cocoon? Because we're all being pressured right now to change. So what change emerges from this pressure? And you get to decide that.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of fluffy, so I'll leave it with a little bit more a more targeted thing. Take a look at yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, and analyze it unemotionally and write it down and see what decisions you can make about the future.
Nice.
That's really good. Absolutely. Well, I mean, look, there's a lot to unpack with all this for sure, right? And we're in this weird time where there's just a lot of unknown ahead, but I think if people keep their head on a swivel and just keep that open mind and realize that you've got to evolve and change a little bit and all of those kinds of things, that everybody's going to come out of this and people are going to come out of this much stronger.
I got to be real though. If I have to adapt and change and get used to training in a mask, man, I was working out outside today and I was sweating so hard and I was breathing in so much air unencumbered and it felt so good. I could not imagine that same experience with a struggle to get oxygen in my face because I'm wearing a mask. I don't know. I think I'm going to struggle with adapting to that if that is our new reality.
Not to mention you're a hugger. You love to hug.
Oh, yeah, of course.
This new future is not looking good for you.
It's not looking good. I got to be like, hey. Oh, elbow bump.
What Eric hasn't told you, he's constructed 19 pillows in the shape of a human that he comes home and hugs every night.
I'm a hugger. I'm a hugger. What can I say?
Joking.
I love people.
You got to keep a grappling dummy around that you can just hug, but you can also just shoulder throw from time to time. Exactly. It's all good.
Dual purpose.
All right. Any closing thoughts on this one, gentlemen? We're going to wrap it up right here. So,
don't electronic distance from us. Do the opposite. Get into our web. Talk about us to your friends. Tell them about the Budo Brothers podcast, or if not, tell them that it was the worst podcast ever. But we just want you to talk. Reach out, find us on the social media things. YouTube, we're really trying to put some focus into YouTube. Definitely. So tell us how we're doing on there. And Stay tuned. We
connected.
have some big innovations coming down the pipe.
Big time.
And we would love to hear your guys' feedback about it.
Awesome. Subscribe and like and share and comment and all those awesome things.
Except don't poke.
And
Like,
don't poke.
Facebook poking is that... I don't know who invented that.
Does that even exist?
I don't know. I haven't poked anybody in a long time. So.
There.
Can anybody find us on MySpace, or is that like done? That's done, right?
Yeah.
That's over. See, we have evolved from that.
Exactly.
How about that,
and
right?
I'll leave everyone with this. I hope that the speculation that you have on your future is bright and that you take actions to go in and achieve that bright future, because all we can do is stay positive, adapt, change, and that is the recipe to thrive.
Beautiful, man. All right, guys, thank you so much, and I will catch you and everyone else on our next episode.
See you next week.